Welcome back. You're watching The Agenda. Now, Zandile Gumede's resignation letter from the city of eThekwini as mayor has brought under the spotlight the legality of withdrawing a notice letter once tendered. The former eThekwini mayor retracted her resignation soon after giving her written notice earlier this week. In her resignation withdrawal letter, she says she made the decision based on sound legal advice. To explore this, we're joined on the line by Sandile July, director at Werksmans Attorneys, who specializes with labor law. A very good morning to you, sir, and thank you so much for making the time to talk to us this morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
What are the considerations in terms of what an employee can do and not do in terms of giving and retracting a notice, especially in relation to the specific example of Zandile Gumede?
My comment should not be misconstrued or construed as if I don't know the relationship. How is it regulated between Gumede and the council? But what happens in it generally is that an employee, once you resign and the resignation has been received by the authorities, the people who are supposed to receive that resignation, you can't unilaterally withdraw that resignation because it has been received and accepted by the people who are supposed to receive it. The only time when you can withdraw, which is not even a withdrawal, is when you don't even submit it. But after submission, once you submit it, you can't withdraw it.
You speak about two incidences where it's the general rules that apply or the laws that govern the contract. But the former eThekwini mayor says her decision to withdraw her resignation was based on sound legal advice. As a political party deployee, how much legal protection can she enjoy?
I must say, I don't think the labor laws apply between a person who has been deployed to a position, because you'll recall that the mayors are elected in a council meeting. They are not appointed like employees who would be offered a position. You get elected, but resignation is a resignation. The principle that applies in an employment relationship should apply because in terms of Section 28, if I'm not mistaken, of the Structural Act, the mayor can resign from council. And once that resignation, I don't know whether that resignation was properly received, but in light of what is being said, that is withdrawing it, it means that it was properly given to the right people. And my view is that that resignation cannot be withdrawn.
Under what circumstances can the resignation be withdrawn?
Listen, even there, in the circumstance where you're withdrawing it because it was in the heat of the moment, you are still at the mercy of the employer, even in that case. So if you can also demonstrate that you were not in the sound mind when you made the decision, you can withdraw, but the withdrawal cannot be unilateral. Under any circumstance, it cannot be unilateral. You can't say, I am withdrawing and therefore the status quo remains. No. When you are withdrawing, you say, I'm withdrawing, but I want to hear whether the person who received my withdrawal is agreeing to that.
So what kind of recourse can she enjoy in terms of with employer giving her the time of day and saying, okay, we will listen to your side of the story?
You have to go to court. If the employer is saying, listen, I've received the withdrawal, I accepted the withdrawal, the resignation. So if you want to withdraw and the employer is refusing, the only place where you can go is to go to court. And it must be in court where you will demonstrate that you were not in sound mind when you did that. Because the resignation by its nature is a unilateral act. If you want to leave, nothing can stop you. So now when that withdrawal, that resignation is received, you cannot just decide that I am withdrawing. You can't.
So now the fact that her resignation came in the backdrop of a disciplinary process where the employer had some aspects of her operations that the employer wasn't happy with. Does this strengthen even further the case of the employer?
I'm not sure if I follow the question.
At the time that Ms. Gumede has handed in her resignation, she was also undergoing a disciplinary process at work in terms of the charges that were laid against her by the criminal justice system. Does this weaken her case in terms of wanting to return to work?
I'm not aware of the disciplinary processes, of course, that were taking place.
Let's deal with it hypothetically.
Okay.
When you wanting to rescind your resignation in a situation where the employer is very happy to have you back, and in a situation where the employer was unhappy anyway.
In an employment situation, an employer would then take you back and then go through the disciplinary process. But I don't understand what type of an employer who would take you back if you resigned and the ultimate aim is to get rid of you in any event. Because when you resign, you are making life easy for the employer. And there's no employer who can agree in you withdrawing that resignation. So if you are in an employment context, there is no employer who can, unless that employer is determined to discipline you so that he wants to dismiss you. But there's no logic there, because the ultimate aim is that the relationship must come to an end. And if it comes to an end because you resigned, so be it.
Mr. July, how much of a legal precedent is the Gumede resignation withdrawal when looking at people in public office?
Listen, there's a lot of that. It has happened in a number of cases. But you remember the Gumede one has got a political element in it. He's a political employee, so to say, because he's elected in the position. But the principle should not be different. When you resign, you resign. And it has happened. A lot of employees, they do resign whilst there's a process of disciplinary hearing. And you can't even continue with the disciplinary hearing if an employee says, I'm resigning. So there's nothing except that it's a political appointment. There's nothing different in terms of principle. The principle is the same. When you resign, you resign. You can't say, I'm withdrawing the resignation.
Yeah. Thank you so much for talking to us this morning, just to give us a little bit of sense into how this might play out in terms of legality. Sandile July is a director at Werksmans Attorneys, and he was talking to us about the possible impacts of Zandile Gumede's wanting to withdraw her resignation. You're watching The Agenda. Let's take a break.